Therefore, when we proceed to the abstract, in the title, when you submit, probably in the title, it might include also some addresses of the authors and also the correspondent, who is the corresponding author, where it should include its email and number, or also affiliation to the hospital or university. And also it might include also a year and so on at the bottom. But in general, it depends from journal to journal when you submit. The abstract is authors, this is where he provides the summary of the manuscript. And this has to include background of the study, and also it has to include the major objective of the study, and which is the objective section. But the objective section under the methodology, it is big one, but in the abstract it's only just 1 or 2 lines. And also it has to include the methodology section, also small. That is the whole. The abstract is a summary of all your methodology, the objectives, background, and also interpretation of your results, and the discussion and report whether the major goal was met in a conclusion, also a small conclusion. You don't have to put all the conclusion under the discussion section. Only the most important conclusion out of the will be put on the abstract. So no figure, no table, no reference are put in abstract. And in most journals accept and have decided that this has to be only 250 words. Some allow you up to 300 words, not more than that. If you give them 400, 500 words in the abstract, they will return it back to you. Otherwise, but when you are presenting for your defense, you can have an abstract maybe bigger than this one. So simply, when we say abstract, simply it states what you did and what you found. What you did is the methodology, and what you found is your result, and what it means is your discussion and conclusion. You have to list at the end of this abstract a few keywords. For example, if it is morbidity, inpatient morbidity, surgical ICU, then you have to add morbidity, inpatient, and to Kurambas Hospital, where, this is important, where others can track your paper and should be listed by abstracting and referencing services, other service websites based or others, so that if you write morbidity, then they click morbidity and they will, your paper will appear in that. So it's easy also to find it in a Google or somewhere similar to like that. Introduction, the purpose of the introduction are first, just you give a rationale of your study. Why you study this one? Because you first tell about the morbidity, and then the morbidity is in ICU is very high or unacceptable in Africa, in Ethiopia. If there is no study in Ethiopia, also you tell us that there was no any study in Ethiopia, and then you explain why the study is study goal. So to know, or my aim or the objective of this study is to know the pattern of something, or to know the outcome of something, or to know any new device or new procedures that are important compared to others. So in the introduction, the reviewer should expect a clear research question. You should have a question. You have to answer some questions, and convincing rationale and significance, and clearly defined also measurable research objectives. So there are objectives, general objectives, specific objectives, which are included in your proposal. So the study outcomes also, your outcome means you will get an information on the morbidity of the ICU, black line ICU, and also you will get an information how to decrease the morbidity and what to improve, and also to follow some standard precautions or protocols. Therefore, this introduction has to include all these parts. So clear research questions means a research question is assessment that identifies the phenomenon of to be studied. Does the manuscript cover an important problem? Really, what you are studying, is it for your interest, or is it important to the institution, or is it important to the community under study, or the subject, the study subjects, or the participants, we call them. So they do have, if for example, you go to the countryside and you want to study bilharziasis or bilharzia or something, but their problem is cataract. So if you go and study bilharzia, which is not their problem, that is not, the study shouldn't be conducted. It has to, because the participants or the community has to benefit from this research. You cannot really, those type of research are research done for higher government officials or in research centers where they can, they are important for the whole nation. But when you go to some community, the research mainly has to come from the participants themselves. Otherwise, if you impose them some research proposal and that which is not their problem, this is, so it has to be important. The problem has to be really acknowledged. Has the research question previously been answered? There could be the same similar research has been done in probably in ICU about morbidity and mortality, but this has been maybe 10 years back. So we have to see, compare, or we have to see whether it has increased or decreased or improved or not or deteriorated. But if it has been done maybe 1 year or 6 months back, there is no need to repeat this research. Okay, the answer to these questions may allow you to decide whether the manuscript is likely to provide a true contribution to the medical literature. It has to contribute something. It has to produce something. Otherwise, just for sake of conducting a research, it is not really advised. Clearly defined objectives. Introduction should outline the objective of your study to make sure that when a reader finishes this introduction, he or she will know the significance of the question. The objective should include population of interest, person, place, time, variables also. The objectives, independent and dependent variables, probably will see the relationship between the variables investigated. When you go to the method section is a portion of the manuscript in which the authors outline how they performed their study. This should include the setting and study design, and also should include study population and sample size, and measurement of endpoints, measurement of the variables. I mean, it means instrument, how you measure. For example, if you want to measure outcome, you have to use an instrument. If you want to study survival, you have to use Kaplan or something. If you have to use know the outcome of head injury, you have to use probably Glasgow outcome scale, not Glasgow coma scale, but Glasgow outcome scale. There are also other instruments. These are tools or instruments. Data processing and analysis, then you have to have the data processing, you have to use softwares and analyze it. And when you analysis, you will see the mean, you will see the mode, you will see the variance, you will see the range, you will see the p-value, or whether this is, you will see the odds ratio, you will see also some analysis used bivariate, monovariate, bivariate analysis, and also logistic regression. And then I have to see also the ethical issue. Ethical has to be well addressed. This has to be seen by the institutional review board or research research institution committee. Any human research involving human research, by definition, it has to pass through an ethical assessment, or ethical issue has to be addressed by the board of ethics, research ethics committee, or institution review committee, or if they are maybe clinical trials, or if they are multi-center or multi-country, or a fund comes from outside, from foreign country, or if foreigner is involved, this has to be approved by the National Ethics Committee, not your institution as well. So ethical issue has to be addressed, and there has to be a letter. It has to pass through a different process. It takes months for big research, but commonly what we do is now based on patient medical records, so that might not need this ethical issue, but it has to be addressed at the department level by the local institutional review board. And therefore, we have to see, because ethical issues will weigh the benefit and the risk, the justification, the autonomy, the consent. In any human research, consent is invaluable. Inviolable. You cannot violate it. It's impossible. You have to. The patient has to give his consent to participate in this research. There are study information sheet and also consent forms. The information sheet is a concise summary of your research, and the consent is a consent that the patient, after understanding about the research, he will agree and sign. This is a written one, but there is also a verbal one for very low risk researches, or they are not, if they are not involving also any intervention on human beings, or if they are not seriously critically ill patients, you can use also verbal, or you can use also video assisted, and so on. There are different ways of consenting. So the worth of scientific finding depends heavily on a manner in which the data were collected and analyzed. So there are some researches where the data is cooked just in your office. You cook it and put it, and then. But there are easy mechanisms to know how, if you are experiencing whether this is cooked or not. So it has to be well collected, not really filled. The questionnaire has to be filled by trained and also professional one, not just a layman. Then the study setting, and when we see when it's the methodology, the first one is study setting and design. It is necessary to check the location where the study was conducted, because this gives you the credibility, the validity of the, because if someone says the setting was done in some very rural area where there is no doctor but nurses, but this study was done and it was about head injury. So there is the validity has failed here, and there is no credibility. So you have to mention the setting, also this population study, because patients differ from place to place, and so also you have to mention that this is the tertiary hospital, where it's also teaching hospital. Therefore, it's less likely there will be cooked data, or less likely to be unethical. There are a lot of issues. So also, what type of study design was used? Is this descriptive? Just descriptive, the simplest one. That's the simplest research or paper. That is, you describe what about simple one disease, for example, about hydrated disease. Oh, we have seen this much amount of hydrated disease, and these were female, and this was the proportion of male, and the sex ratio is this one, the range is this one, and it's more common, liver is more common, or lung is the second one, and then just you describe, and the finding on this one, and intraoperatively was this one, the postoperatively is this one. That's just description, and maybe you can put also p-value. That's the only significant value. Otherwise, correlational, more advanced. Experimental, that is also, it has to pass maybe experiment. For example, if you are going to do a vaccine experiment, it has to pass 5 phases. Starts from laboratory, and then from guinea pigs, small population, small amount of people, and the larger one, and then the whole population, and so on. So totally an experiment or a vaccine, if it has to pass through the standard way, it takes more than 10 years, 10, 15 years. But unlike the coronavirus vaccines, because there was vaccines earlier, so these were just adopted. Otherwise, they are not really the vaccines like, for example, measles, tuberculosis, and others. They have taken a lot of years to develop. So explanatory, diagnostic, and so on. And the others could be also classified as quantitative and qualitative. The qualitative ones are usually for social, psychological, or psychiatric, and so on. This involves a focused group or personal interviewing or observation, and so on. Qualitative is in number, that you have to put it in number, everything. And the prospective and retrospective, this is just surgeries done in black line for the last 20 years. Prospectively, you can see them, but it has a lot of limitations. When we come to limitation, we will discuss about. Retrospective is something you start the study as of today or as of tomorrow. And but generally, there are meta-analysis where different research are analyzed together, so from different countries all over the world. A systematic review and research, also randomized control trial. This is level 1 evidence research. So this is the highest quality of research of the quality. Court study, these are something prospective. Court could be also something that has happened in the past, but you follow these patients. So there is prospective, retrospective court. For example, you have taken, there are patients who had measles some 20 years back, and this sample was stored, and you want to study some other, if you want to take the sera and to study some other issue other than this one. So you follow these patients, and also you can also follow these patients prospectively, or you can ask them, so that could be a court. Court is usually also a case, there is a control. There are normally, but it can be done also without control. Case control is you have disease patients and a normal patients, and then anonymously or without, they don't know which group they are, and you pretend as you gave them the same medication, but the control group are those ones who didn't take or placebo or something, or they didn't take anything. So you don't know, you put them randomly. There is also how to put them, how to classify, to sample them. Cross-sectional is cross-sectional. This has been, for example, 10 years in black line has been seen, but you will take only the last 2 years cross-section. Of the 10 years, only you cross and you dissect and take only 2 years. A case reports, a case series, case series are more than 2 and maybe 5, 3, 6, 7, but case series, when they reach up to 30 or 25 to 30, they become an original article. It could also be, these are also ideas, editorials, opinions. They are usually put in the first page of the journals. Action research design is, an action research design is not a generalizable. All the above are generalizable. Research means there is research design, there is methodology, and then a scientific research with scientific output, and that you can generalize it. But it depends on your sample size. If it's only, you take maybe low sample size, you cannot generalize. If you take only from one place, you cannot generalize. So, but generally, above one as generalizable. But action research is only for small problems, and these are small groups and interviews, and only maybe 20, 30 people you engage them. And you can, for example, if you in your classroom, if there is one problem, there is maybe less attendance, and you study this one, and you can take, what you do is action research. So there are also other study population and sample. Who is the study population? You have to know your target population, source population, and you will see this in methodology. You will have another class. How complete and up-to-date is the sampling frame? How appropriate was the selection method of the study units? So there are usually two types of sampling: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. The probability sampling are either simple random, Simple random means just it's a lottery system. So they will take randomly, either by coin flipping or a lottery system. But systematic sampling is if there are 10 or 100 people and they are going to take one from each, every 10 or every 10 groups, subgroups, you will take one. So maybe every third until 101 seeders, third, 13th, 23rd, 33rd, yeah, 6th, the same. So you will take this one systematic sampling. So just avoid non-representation. Stratified sampling could be simple or also cluster or multi-stage or multi-stage clustering. Stratified sampling is you put them into strata or subgroups. You divide them according to gender and or according to age or according to range from 0 to 14. From these are children. From 15 to 20 something are adolescents. From 20 something up to 40 these are young adults, and then older ones. So then you take randomly or systematic sample, and then you take from this different from this strata, you take either by simple random or by systematic random sampling, the first one. After you stratify them, you just do either number 1 or 2 from each strata. Cluster is you divide the population into subgroups, the same like the above strata, or should have, but those who have similar characteristics. For example, garden schools all over Ethiopia. So we are going to look at all the kindergarten, but you cannot go really to all this kindergarten and you cannot have an interview. So what you do is, but you know that all these kindergarten students have similar characteristics. Either they are probably under 6 years old or 7. So they have the same similar, a lot of similar characteristics. Then you can include every individual from each sample. 1. You choose out of 10, for example, kindergarten, 3. From the 3, you take all of them. 3 out of 10 kindergartens. You choose 10, but you will take either by simple random or systematic sampling 3. But if you have a large sample size, you can further sample it. That means either you include individual from each sample or cluster, or sample individuals from within each cluster. Because you have 100 kindergarten, your target is 3, but you will take 10. Then out of 10, you will take as some proportion from 10 kindergarten by simple randoming or systematic sampling. So this is a multi-stage. First, you have divided them, and from the division from 100 from the groups as kindergarten, from 100 you took 10. Then from 10 you take individuals from each. But in simple one, you take 3 of the clusters. Non-probability sampling is usually done in medicine, especially in surgery, because we don't have adequate samples. That's why we include all consecutive patients, all who came, but you have to exclude some patients by exclusion criteria. There is exclusion and inclusion criteria. So in your protocol, there will be exclusion criteria. Those who have additional also diseases are excluded. But non-probability sampling, purposive non-probability sampling or consecutive sampling, this is continuous sampling. All patients who come for a specified period are included. How was the sample size estimated? There are sample size estimation for descriptive, maybe around 380. I'm not going to show you the formula, and there is also different usually they use the incidence prevalence to calculate this of the disease, to calculate sample size. Measurements of endpoints or variables. Justification by authors, those who choose the variables to measure and reliability of measurement. Are variables clearly defined? Are they dependent or independent? The dependent one is the outcome that they are going to look. And the independent variables are, these are age, exposure, maybe these are smokers, or these are diabetic patients, or these are, so you'll see the effect of diabetes on eye, maybe. So the outcome is the effect on eye. So age, religion, residence area, income, all this usually included in this, what we call it, DEMI table. These are independent variables. So the dependent one is the outcome. For example, a title, retrospective study on the visual outcome after transfemoral surgery for pituitary microadenoma. So the independent variables here are age, sex, duration of symptom, presenting dominant symptom, Knopf-Steiner grade. This is an instrument to measure the outcome, tumor size, preoperative optic nerve atrophy, preoperative visual acuity, and field. But the dependent one on this one is post-operative visual outcome, acuity and visual acuity and field. So you have to see, okay, for example, exposure in maybe Chernobyl or what we call Nagasaki and Hiroshima, there is an exposure. That exposure is effect after the atomic bomb. Then you see these patients, and the dependent variables are the different tumors or different congenital outcomes after so many years. So that is the outcome. But the independent one are the sex, age, duration, and so on and so on. So procedures, for example, also specific data collection methods have to also include measurement endpoints, some measurement procedures. Sound data processing analysis plan. Data processing is detailed plan for handling and analyzing data given procedures for recording, storing, reducing data, software used, assessing data quality, data processing, and then statistical analysis. You have to use either software EP-info or what we use commonly is also the SPSS version 20, 21, 22, and so on, ANOVA, and so on. There are a lot of things. Are statistical methods appropriate for the data? Is it p-value or a logistic regression or bivariate? Are you comparing? Are you looking at the outcome? Are you really see correlation or different types? Also, you have what, and then what test assumptions are given in statistical analysis. There are hypotheses, null hypotheses, and so on. Ethical issues already I have discussed, and this has to be approved by the appropriate body. Approval by appropriate ethical bodies increases your research value. Result section. This section must answer questions: what did the author find? And this section is a communication of facts and measurements and observations. It's often more appropriate to start with results that are easier to interpret. For example, with age, sex, interpretation, this DEMI table, religion, and so on. Then you go maybe with symptoms, common symptoms, or this one, and then you go maybe correlate. For example, if dural, you are looking at the predictors of dural tearing in the critical fracture, and then what you have to go first is the dural tear, what it looks like. And those who had dural tear usually had a depressive fracture more than this centimeter, or a pneumocephalus, or they had contusion. And then finally, you see the relation between the contusion and dural tear. And that is where you need statistical analysis, interpretation. So regardless of when they were obtained, you have to put the easiest first and then to the complex one. In the results, simply state what you found without interpretation. The interpretation comes in the discussion. You interpret because this is low in our study as compared to the study done in Asia or in America, in Colorado, because our patients are like this, or our methodology is like this, or sample size was small or big, or we have a limitation on this one, or our patients are different, you have to explain, or maybe another interpretation. Your results should be logically organized into tables, figures, or both, or can also be put in prose, also in sentences. Every table and figure should be mentioned in the text. You shouldn't talk any result, any table, or any result when you are writing, because result is put into one in writing, and those who are summarized in tables or figures. When you write, the distribution was like this, and the mean was like this, says C table you write. So table 1 explains more about the result. But when you write in the paragraph, it's only 1 or 2 sentences. But in the table, it's detailed, and maybe you will mention only in the result the most important one. And in the table or the figure, you put everything, but this is unorganized. You don't put all your calculations. You organize them again. You don't put what you found in your statistical analysis in the SPSS or AP info. You will have a lot of calculations there, but you summarize them and you put them in a table. You create your own table. You don't have to copy paste from the statistical analysis softwares. So every table and figure should be mentioned in the text in order of their appearance also. If you are talking about sex distribution, then you have to put the table first about sex distribution. You cannot talk about the last one. You cannot make it on top. There is no need to point out every datum, but do not point out trends, but do point out trends you want to focus on later in the discussion portion of the paper. So you don't have to put every data derived from your software. Raw data is almost never included in scientific paper. Okay, this is what raw data is in your software. When you analyze it, just you ask the analysis and it will give you a lot of raw data, a lot of tables in different forms, either in tables or in figures or in maybe in bar graphs and so on. Data is summarized in some form. For example, means are reported, not individual observations. So when you see the sex or age, there is age starting from 1 up to 90, but you don't have to put all this in a table. You organize them in a table and you put the mean. So the mean was 21 plus or minus standard deviation 10 or 25.5, let us say. So when the range is very big one, you don't put means, you put mode. But when the range is small, you put mean. No individual observation or no data are plotted in a manner which illustrates the trends you want to emphasize. Include descriptive and analytical statistics, standard deviation, as I have said. It is sufficient to indicate where statistical significance occurred and confidence level. So p-value less than 0.05 is indicative of this 97% confidence interval. So this means it's significant, your finding. No need to provide all of your calculations. In the results section, again, include figures, I have said, the legends below the graph and the tables, the table legends above the table. If it is table, you put it on top of the table. If it's figure, on the bottom of the your figure. So the legend, and you have to give a number. If you have 5 tables, 1, next table 2, 3, 4, 5, and the same like that of also figure. And in normally most papers allow only 5 tables, but there are other also can allow more. The same also 2 to 3 figures. But there are also big researches where you can put almost all your different journals. So do the figures and graph adequately show the important results? You have to either bold them or highlight them, the most important one, because out of your data maybe 10 rows, the most important could be in the middle or the top or the bottom, and you have to highlight it or bold it. Do arrows need to be added, for example, to depict important? For example, you are displaying an X-ray, so you tell them this is destroyed cellular, but you have to you put an arrow, otherwise no one can understand where is the finding, or if there is maybe hyperintensity or some calcification, they have to show that finding, or there is a ring enhancement, or there is a wall, something like that. You have to put an arrow. Are the figures and graphs appropriate, and are they appropriately labeled? Also, they have to be appropriately labeled. This is an example. The first one is a table, and the legends of the table is put on the top. And the second one is a graph, which is figure. Figure means either graph, or it can also be a picture. So this, you have to put the legend at the bottom. The discussion section. In this section, interpret the results and state your conclusion in the light of your original hypothesis. Examine your results in the context of other published studies. So what you have to do is you have to interpret your results, and you have already done p-values or regression or ratio and so on. Then you start with according to your result. According to that, the first you discuss was about age, so you start with age also. Then the age, this one was, you don't copy paste the results in the discussion, but there are also some papers that discussion and results are also done together. But this one, if it's separate one, you say the sex difference or the peak incident was similar to someone study in South Africa. But it was different to some of the study done in Kenya by Hagos et al. So then you explain why it was similar with the other, why it was not also different from the other, and then you continue to the other portion of the result. What you discuss is all the results, comparing with others, or also you interpret your own interpretation. So you have to compare them with the published papers. Consider here a source of error or difference in protocol that might cause your results to differ from other published data, or point out support or other data that may give you your interpretation. Refer to the tables and graph and your results to make your points if necessary. So sometimes you can put also the p-value here. In this section, authors should try to answer questions possibly what gaps in knowledge they may be filled. Reviewers should check the following structures: summary of important findings, comparison and interpretation, conclusion and recommendation, and then the revision also in the discussion part. Discussion section should begin by summarizing the background. Already you had it on the introduction, but maybe different sentence, not similar. You could have a different backgrounds taken from other published papers. So you put it here, or your hypothesis or findings. Example is hypothesis or vindicated. Our findings summarize your findings. Is the discussion concise? If not, how should be sorted? If a hypothesis was proposed, does the author state whether it was verified or falsified? Alternatively, if no hypothesis was proposed, does the author state whether the research questions was answered or not? Should comparison interpretations compare results from previous literature or published ones, and explain why the results are. If the author state whether it was verified or falsified, is alternatively, if no hypothesis was proposed, does the author state whether the research questions was answered or not? Should compare comparison interpretations compare results from previous literature or published ones, and explain why the results are. are or not consistent with literature, or they have told you, or they have explained that one, should interpret findings to fit what is theoretically known also. Sometimes, if it varies, you have to have strong analysis and also to interpret it that's different, and you have strong reason. Conclusion should provide generalization of the finding, if possible, comment on how the results can be applied to other settings of population or to individual patients. If so, what are the assumptions? Are the author's conclusion justified by the results found in the study? So you cannot have a conclusion which is not derived from your results section. For example, if you are studying about breast pattern of review of breast. So you what you have to say is breast is common in this area in female, also common in this area, and they say from somewhere in southern part of Ethiopia, and maybe those who take those who are going to give birth, or maybe those are taking contraceptive pills or something, and then if the types are this one is dominant. About the review about the types and the histology is this one, and then the outcome was treatment was this one. But you cannot just put a conclusion. Self-examination and mammography is very important in diagnosing breast cancer, because you haven't done any research on the mammography or on self-examination. If you go back, there's a lot of research like this. So your conclusion should be derived from your results. So your result says breast is common in females. No. But maybe you can avoid this one. But breast was common in a non-child bearing age group or something. Or breast commonest was different from others. This type of that cancer was common. And treatment which one, this one was the outcome is very good. But just only also conclusions. If there are unexpected results, do others adequately account for them? So you have to, if there are unexpected results, opposite results, you have to explain it. Our recommendation is on the results, and based on conclusion, now we can come to the recommendation. Because, the incidence of breast places. Therefore, takes also advantage. Now we can recommend, okay, based on this one, the incidence can increase if we do self-examination or screening mammography. We can recommend, but not your conclusion. Okay? Our recommendation based on the results and the specific physical limitation. You should discuss weak and strong points of the study, taking into account source of bias or imprecision. Those are not limitations of the study. Is it retrospective as a limitation, because you are going to see some data, patient data, patient medical records, or you are going to interview a patient who doesn't really completely remember what has been done, and you are going to do retrospectively. This is a limitation. Or limitation sample size. Your sample size has to say 85, but your sample size was 60 or something. You cannot have a generalization. This is the problem that we have here. All the postgraduate graduates who present their paper do have very low small amount of. If it's rare, this is accepted. Small amount is rare. This is all rare procedure or rare. Also new. But if it's common one, so if there is a small amount of patient sample size, that's a limitation. So you have to also exhaust all limitations. This is mentioned possible bias. There is a bias also. You have to remove all biases. How might limitations impact our findings? Are there additional limitations that should be noted also? The reference section. The importance of citing sources inside publication is not to be taken lightly. You have to acknowledge someone from whom you took your references. This is someone's work, and usually in your introduction or in your discussion, you have to put a reference. So that the reference list follow the format of the journal? Does the reference list contain errors? Have the authors appropriately represented the salient points in the article in the reference list? Alternatively, have the authors misquoted the references? Some references he puts them, they don't belong to that statement. Okay. Are there important references that are not mentioned that should be noted? For example, there is a very important publication on in East Africa, but you are thinking in Ethiopia, and you didn't include this reference. And it's also the latest one. Usually I include more recent ones. Don't include very remote ones. Other important references are not mentioned in that we noted. Are there more references? And then to also put a lot of references more than needed. Citation and referencing. An in-text citation should appear wherever a report or paraphrase text source in your writing. In Hagos style, citation appears in the brackets in the text. So in the text, I might show you some text. There is citation text. And in the text, citation consists of the last name of the author, the year of the publication, and the page number. In some only the name and the year of publication. Some include page. The terms of reference are also often used to refer to the same thing file. Although citation tends to mean the part of the text within your assignment where you acknowledge the source. Why references usually refers to the full bibliographical information as the end of your manuscript. So the following are commonly used references: APA, American Psychological Association, usually for psychological and education papers, AMA, and also the American Medical Association. Style is standard for American Medical Association, that's JAMA and Archive Journals, this one. Harvard Modern Language Association, Modern Demand Research Association, Vancouver, which we use commonly in most journals, medical journals used. Australian Government Publishing Service, AGPS, Harvard is an author-based style, meaning in-text citation. This is in-text, as I have said earlier. Journals are not the only source of information or data used for scientific research. Other sources include books, online journals, CD-ROMs, electronics, books, personal communications, and published papers also can be included. But they have to start first from most important and credible journals or books. Then you go to the online electronics, and then to also personal communications or unpublished data. In text example, you can see according to Gary, bracket 218, page 135. Or some put it also Gary inside the bracket. And then this is another only year end page. But in Harvard, it's not, it is name, year and page, all including the name. There is significant gender area difference referred to how much people use this one. Okay, reference list example. Also, this is a full reference which is put at the end of your publication. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. So we will see what the components of this are. First name. The first name is not the one put in front, is not the first name. It is the last name or the surname, followed by middle or your name, your first name or middle name, probably two initials. We call them the abbreviation or initials. There are some use only one initial and the other two. The two initials are your first name and your first name and your next your father's name. exploring how many, and so on. And then you write the topic, the title, and followed by the educational psychology practice, the journal, followed by volume, followed by number, page number, and so on. The year was put in front. This is hard. So the basic of reference list entry for journal article, authors, the surname is followed by first initial, I have said first, or including father's second name, year of publication of the article entitled, journal title, volume of journal, issue, that is what you have seen previously. This is Gary L. 218 and so on, 2018. This is it. But if you look also this again in detail, you see Gary is author, and here 2018, and this is the article title about exploring how and why, and journal title or journal name, and the volume, and the number, and the page. But in Vancouver, we're going to write PP and or volume, because the sequence is known. I will show you. Basic format for reference and book, it's different in Harvard. The basic reference and book, authors, the same like name, year, title, edition, place of publication, and year of publication, and city also included in Vancouver, but there is no city here. So this is Alistair, the author, and year 2018. Title, the Bulletin Environment, edition, Liverpool University, publisher, and then the place of publication, Liverpool. This is Harvard. We don't use the Harvard one. Let's type like this to see also different files. I will show you. That's Vancouver. Vancouver is a number reference slide commonly used in medicine and science, and consists of citation to someone else working in the text indicated by the use of number. So a special number reference, and at the end of the document provide full details of the corresponding text reference. So when you do a reference one, you put it first in your introduction under the number, give it a number. Or in text citation, this is text citation, but many people say that citation is Gary or something, year and page, that's in text citation. You can put both. And at the end, you put number, full reference, full means it includes the author's name, the title of the chapter, if it is from book, this is from a book, name of the editor, title or book, the book itself, the city, name of the publisher, year, first and last page number. So this is as compared to the Harvard one. We have seen it earlier. There is no chapter name, there is no editors, there is no title, but there are similarities. So this is from a book. Ultras M, Simbas M. This is at the end of the authors, you put period or full stop. Then you write the name, the title of the chapter is from a book. This is of Liver in Shields TW. This is a book, and then the highlighted city is a title, and that followed by the editors. There are no still the name of the authors here, okay? The authors are only in front. These names, Lo Cicerio and Pon RB are the editors. Then this is followed by title or book. If there is title, or if it is a book, then the general thoracic surgery, that's the book. And you put edition. It's a 5th edition. If there is no edition, you put any edition. If it's on the first one. But if there is edition, you put edition. Then the name of the publisher is Philadelphia. It's a name, I mean the name of the city, Philadelphia, and the publisher, Sleeping Coat Williams and Wilkins, and then the year and followed by page number. This is Vancouver for, and for other standard journal, again, standard journal article, Lauren R. Church and H1 antihistamines inverse algorithm and so on. In the reference lists of the article, most journals tourniquet the list for after 3 or 6 names followed by et al. When you also reference, there are more in the text reference, you put Hagos et al. It means there are others in the reference in bracket when you put it in the text on the paragraph, first paragraph or second paragraph. But when you are putting as reference at the end of your article, if there are more than 6, you put et al. Put the first 3 names et al. And some other put 6 and then et al. It depends. But usually, if they are more common, is 3 names and et al. Then we see this is Gilbert, the second reference, Morgan, and so on. There is et al. You can see in the first one there are only two authors. It doesn't need et al. But second one there are more than 3 or 6, so you need et al. Authors followed by the title, followed by the journal name, followed by the year, followed by the volume, followed by number in bracket. In bracket is a number. So that is the issue or the volume and a number. But in Harvard, you say volume in front of 350 and number in front of 19. You divide them. But in Vancouver, you put it in bracket. And you put the number, the page number, the first and the last number. But some put also 1985 to not 1997, but they put only 97. And some put, if it's only, for example, if they put 7, it means it is 1987. But if they put 1997, if they want to put 97, you have to only omit 97, because it could mean also 87. If it's 87, you put only 7. 1985 to 19, you can put 7. But if it's 97, it has increased more than 10, so you have to put on 97. So general rules for names, list names in the order of they appear in the text first. You cannot put the number 1 in your reference. You put probably 10 references in bracket or superscript. Then you put them at the end of your manuscript in according to chronologically one. When you put also reference in your text, you put, for example, Hagos works in Black Lion Hospital, bracket 1 reference. Then his brother or his colleague also works in Black Lion. Another, if you continue with bracket or superscript 2, you cannot go 3 without using 2. But you can use also from 2 to 3 or to 4, 5, 6. And then you can come back the next sentence. You can go to 2 or 1, but the last one has to be more than 5, because here you said 2 to 4, and the next one has to be either 1 to 5 or 2 to 5 or 3 to 5 or 4 to 5. Then the next one. So it has to be in order of chronological order. And it has to be also the same in reference. So list name in the order of the paper, enter surname, family or last name, first or for each other, for each author, capitalize surname and enter space. So you put space after your surname, then the initials together. There is no space. If you use 2 initials, no space. If it's only one, then full stop. If it's only one author. If there are a lot of authors, at the end of the authors, a full stop. Within the surname as they appear in the document, convert given first names and middle names to the initial name. Middle name is the father's name, okay? So for a maximum of 2 initials following each surname, give all authors, regardless of the number, separate author names from each other by comma and space. So if there are 4 or 5 authors, the author name is, we have said, surname, space, then initials, either 1 or 2, then comma, then the next one comes, then comma. Then when you finish, full stop. End author information with a period. Criteria for authorship. So we have finished about referencing. This is more than enough for today, because when you write, you will also exercise it and you will see it. So you have to be accustomed to usually one type of referencing, usually Vancouver, but other, when you are forced, or when you send your manuscript to probably those who use Harvard, also you will see it. You will Google or see it. So contributed, though, an author is who has contributed for the conception or design first. Contribute to acquisition, analysis, or interpretation. Drafted the manuscript. Critically revised the manuscript. You give your brother or your friend or your mentor to revise your manuscript, then he is an author automatically. But if he's very senior here and he wants to help, and if you acknowledge that he doesn't want to have his name, that is birthright. Give final approval. The one who gives the final approval agrees to be accountable for all aspects of work, ensuring integrity and accuracy. So if you are an author, you are accountable for everything, for all mistakes, for all ethical problems, for all plagiarism, and so on, everything. Duplication, or also for the good, not only for the award, also for the bad, everything that comes after your publication. Author signature, please print, sign, and scan. Submit digitally with manuscript file. Acknowledgement, all contributors who have contributed material to the paper, but whose contribution we have said contributors initially, so do not justify authorship, may be listed as collaborators. Who are collaborators? And their contribution should be described clearly in the contribution statement. There are also contribution statements in a very big journals like Lancet. Recently, we have published a paper, and there are contributors and there are also collaborators. So critically reviewed, so served as scientific advisor. For example, the one who has served you as a scientific advisor, critical reviews the study proposal, collected data, or provided and cared for study patients. So these are contributors. The aim would be to add collaborate on the PubMed record, provided that this practice is accepted by publisher. The output is submitted too. Final support should also be, financial support also should be acknowledged. But in most journals, if there is a fund, you have to also acknowledge the fund provider can be also included as an author. If there are big institutions or companies, they have only acknowledgement is enough. Acknowledgement, you did not just win an Oscar, so you have to forget about friends and family. Don't acknowledge your family or friends, my mother, my sister, my something. That's not really those who are involved in conceptualization, data curation, formal analysis, fund acquisition. You see all this. Now this one includes the fund acquisition, those who have funding, but in the other, you have to acknowledge them. So it differs from, this is a journal, the interdisciplinary neurosurgery. Investigation methodology, who was involved with investigation methodology, project administration, resources, software, supervision, validation, visualization, role writing, draft writing, review, and editing. These are considered to be author in interdisciplinary neurosurgery, but not in the previous ones. But what they said is this, what is listed here. So it depends, but most of the time you can really, it depends on your contribution. That's why some journals also, you write your contribution and they assign you also. But also when you write, you also, you put your name and you put your contribution, and then they will make who is the author, who is the contributor, who should be acknowledged. What is intellectual literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and image used in commerce. So intellectual property is protected in law by for example, patent, copyright, trademark. These are different types of intellectual property. Copyright is for use for works covered by copyright, range from book, music, paintings, sculpture, films, computer programs, database, advertisement, maps, and technical drawings. Patents are for inventions, and trademarks are for trademark signs. There are also industrial designs, graphic indicators, trade secrets, and so on. These are not our point of interest. A research registry is a collection of information about individuals. There are different types of research registry. Registries of people with a specific diagnosis. Participants with health studies. By joining a research registry, you agree to be contacted about participating in future research studies. So you just go into Recruit Me, is a free online study and recruitment tool launched by Columbia University's Clinical Trial Office. So if you want to register, you register on this registry form, in this research registry form, and you are volunteering to be a participant or a subject. So to connect those who want to participate in the research studies to the research who conducts them. Indexation. Sorry, we'll come back to you. Indexation of a journal is considered a reflection of its quality. So index means it shows you the quality of the your journal or publication, and also the research or the book, any, and so on. And so there are also other way of weighing the value of the journal, and that is also what we call the impact factor. So indexation compared to non-indexed journals. So there are few non-indexed journals. For example, East Central ICAJAS is a central journal of this Central African Journal of Surgery is not indexed, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't. It's not counted for promotion or for any purpose. But it means this is for when there is highly competitive scenario, then this will be considered in its indexed one, or your publication is indexed one or not. So going for it's being publication since it is being publication since 1979. Indexation has started over the the years, many other popular indexation services have developed. This include like Midline, PubMed, what you use, Imbus, Scopus, IBSICO, Publishing Electronic Database, Scirus, among others. There are various regional and national versions of index, Medicus, such as African Index Medicus. Should one aim at only the journal index in Index Medicus, Mediline, or PubMed, is it appropriate to make submission to journals having high impact factor, although they are not indexed with index? So there are some have high impact factor but not indexed. There are indexed or not with low impact factor. So these are controversial things that we don't really have to concern. Recently, many more indexation services have come up. This include Casper, DOAJ, Expanded Academia, as ASAP, and Genomics Journal, SIG, Hinari Index, and so on. Are these indexation service quality equally relevant? Would a journal indexed with any of this database be considered indexed? So when you come to impact factor, impact score is a measure of the importance of a journal. The impact factor is a measure of the yearly average number of citations to the recent articles. The index, the impact factor of Japan Medical Journal local by Addis Ababa University is taken as 0.5. Any foreign without indexed one, without impact factor, 0.25. But there are also national, like the public health and also the JIMA journal published in JIMA University, that they do have 1 point something, 1.5. So it's Japan Medical Journal is one of the lowest one. If you go to Lancet, it goes to up to 79. There are also more than 100. So this is important when you submit your research paper for incentives to the university. This is multiplied by impact factor. So with only one publication, you might be granted 100,000, but the limit is 25. You will get all of it. But if you publish 5 or 10 publications in journal of, or 5 in Ethiopian Medical Association, it's multiplied by 0.5, so it might not reach 25,000. So impact factor is very important for, it really weighs your value of your publication in that journal. So impact factor is a journal impact factor of an academic journal is a scientometric index calculated by Clarivate that reflects the yearly mean number of citations of articles published in the last 2 years in a given journal as indexed by Clarivate website science. So this is the example how you calculate impact factor Y of 2017 is citation, the year 2017, publication Y-1 2016 plus publication Y-2 2015. So 2 years. Publication Y-1 and my Y-2 are 2016 and 2017. And the citation, so this journal, which above mentioned, had 74,090 citations to cited. So you will find the citation in PubMed, also in some other softwares. And this citation, and this was the publication in that year was 880 plus 902 for the 2 consecutive years. Therefore, the impact factor is 41.5. This is one of the highest impact factors. So if you have a chance to publish in this paper, you are a very strong and real researcher. So DOI is DOI, or DOI, Digital Objective Identifier, is a string of numbers, letters, and symbols used to permanently identify an article or a document and links to it in the website. So at the end of your publication or the references, there is DOI number, if you have really observed it. So there is a permanent ID that when appended to the website, in the address bar of an internet browser, we lead you to the source. So when you click this one, it will lead to the source, and you will get either full or abstract or full article. So maybe I will show you before we finish some of the things that I have already discussed. This is insight in text citation in brackets. Can you see this in brackets 1 and 2? And there is 3, so it's chronological. When you go inside, when you go to the last one, so the reference, these are the references, and these are according to the Vancouver style. And this is abstract, and this is, if you see here, introduction, there is a superscript type of, there is 1 to 5 here. Endoscopic ventriculostomy, it has been widely applied in pediatric patients over the last several decades, with many centers reporting successful outcome. 1 to 5, that's superscript. And continues again 6, 7. It doesn't jump to 8 or 9, and then 8 to 9. Then I used again 8. I can go back, but the last one has to be greater than 8. So 8, 9. So at least I can stop here because, no, I cannot stop here because I've already used 10. Then I have to stop and it reaches 11. But I can add also 12. But the next one has to be 13, minimum 13. Okay, this is a type of superscript type of insight, but at the end of the sentence. The other in text is, I have shown you, like Larry or Gary, year and name, and year and page number. I think with this we have to conclude today's presentation. If you have few questions, I can ready to handle it. Few questions. Yes, a little bit louder. Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. My journey, probably, I don't know it's, whether it's appropriate or not, but as any Ethiopian, I will just from school to secondary school, then GCMS, that's College of Science, as a medical MD, and then I became a surgeon at Addis Ababa University, and then International Research Ethics in 2007 in University of Cape Town, and then 2010 I graduated from subspecialty in neurosurgery, in addition to also HDP, they call it higher diploma program by Addis Ababa University. Therefore, where I've worked almost in most of all over Ethiopia. briefly or for maybe years or months, and most of the time I have been in the Columbus Hospital at Addis Ababa University since 2001, at the end of 2001. So I am here, but if you really take also the whole, including the residency, surgery, neurosurgery also, and also internship, I did it in Black Lion. So it was almost most of the time I have been in this institution. Maybe what motivated me to do research is I am not from a school where it is a clinical oriented school, Gondar College of Science. Gondar College of Science was under Addis Ababa University, so our degree is from Addis Ababa University, but there was the only one university during my time, and there was second one was Asmara, and the third one was just coming, the Alamaya. Otherwise, Jimma was also a college, so under Addis Ababa University, and then finally it became a university. So I am from an institution where it is only clinically oriented medical school, as compared to Jimma. Most of the time they spend their time on community health, starting from year 2 until they finish. But in school typical like Gondar, it was the same like that of Addis Ababa University or Tukuramba's Hospital. We had only an exposure during the 4-0, what we call clinical 1, what we call it the community diagnosis. We go for 2 months to the rural area and do a research. We call it community diagnosis, and also practice treating some small things like cataract or helmets, just febrile illness and so on. So I didn't have any much research background, but when I became a resident in surgery, I was inspired by my mentors, my supervisors, my teachers, Professor Adam, who was the one who pushed me to do the first paper on chest injury and also abdominal wall tumors by plastic surgeon, and we did a lot of research together with professor and other colleagues, and then finally I was deeply immersed into this type of field, and then finally I tried to also contact my friends from public health, those biostatisticians or epidemiologists or other who did good researches. And finally, I started also to be involved in international researches, like clinical trials, also are done in 156 countries, like the head injury in Cambridge, like the folic acid also for neural tube defects, done in different countries now to be implemented in Ethiopia also. Folic acid fortification in salt, you fortify food. So our food is not, staple food is not prepared in factory. So what we have to do is to use it in salt. So this one, and there are also other collaborative researches, also thematic research also done in this institution. So I was involved. So it was gradually and progressively that I found it myself to be, I was a researcher. Otherwise, it was not overnight that I became to be a researcher. And unfortunately, I became the first neurosurgeon, professor in neurosurgery. But I would really think that my mentor, also my teacher, Joseph Taris, would have been the first one. But unfortunately, he couldn't fulfill, or he was retired, he was put into pension. But even after pension, we recruited him, we employed him on contract basis, but it was not possible because once you are on contract, once you are not full employee, full-time employee, cannot be professor. So it is really, I really appreciate that it came to me, this chance, but I don't mean that there are also others who deserve to be a professor in neurosurgery, I can tell you. So that is what I can say. Thank you. Any question?
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, I think there is a question on the chat box. On the chat box, but also on the question, it says, is there any software to do the Vancouver style referencing? How to do the numbering on the essay for research literature? You choose 2 times.
What, 2 times?
Is there any software?
Yes, it's not, you don't need any software for this, but there is also what we call a reference. When you put your reference chronologically in your text, then you have to put it also at the end chronologically. So there is software which can tell you, which can put your references chronologically. Besides, there are also softwares for plagiarism. So there is a percentage. If you copy more than 30, 40, 50%, they call it plagiarism. But it does mean that some sentences are copy-paste because you cannot change. That is what you want. But you cannot, when you write your own, you don't have to copy some others' idea. You have to put your own idea. But when there are, as I told you, the references are copy-paste. You shouldn't also modify them. But for example, you might, when you put a reference, you might not do it directly because there is one, for example, the incidence is 2, someone says 2, and the other say 4, and the third one says 6. So you can put it, the incidence is 2 to 6, and you put these references together, 1, 2, 3. So there is also, you can put them together. But about the software for this one, there is a software for referencing, but not the style. The style you choose. The style is very simple, just how to do it. Once you read it, you know it. There is no, because only one sentence to know the style. The surname, initials, space initial, comma, another one, period, then the title, then the name of the journal. Usually the name of the journal is not in full. Usually for Ethiopian Medical Journal, it is Ethiop Med J. For neurology, usually it's Neurol. Lancet Neurol, or something like that. So then it follows the year, then semicolon, and some use in front or behind, before or behind the year. They put also month or date, and then you put the volume. DIO number, the object, the digital object identifier. So you don't need any software for Vancouver or Harvard, but you have to stick usually to the Vancouver, and maybe as an additional you can also use the Harvard. But for references, there is definitely software. Both also for plagiarism, that is not for you, that is for the reviewers. They need this one. And also there are, they check for reference. For example, you have put, it's in your text, but it doesn't exist in your reference list. So there is also software checks everything like this.
There's another question on the chat box. So it says, what are some active ways medical students can look for original research questions in their environment, which are not costly to do, but can bring helpful content?
Yeah, usually if you are a beginner, you don't have to go for big researches. For collaborative research, maybe you can just as the entry point, he can be as a data collector, one, or he can also maybe participate in writing. So you write, you'll know how to writing style. There are different writing styles. This is only scientific paper styles of way methods, but the writing style is different. And then you can start usually with descriptive ones, descriptive studies. Just you have to describe what you see. If you are interested in one disease, commonly you see, describe. If it's not done previously or recently, you can describe. Otherwise, big research like that needs a lot of collaboration and a lot of budget, or a lot of also trials, clinical trial, for example. I've been involved in some clinical trials. This is something that we cannot really do it by our own self. It's very difficult. It's usually a big grant. A lot of brains are involved in this one. So you can start with the simplest one, and but usually I think you can start with data collection, and automatically you will be the author. And you have to know also you write. Usually when the data collectors are not, can be also acknowledged. But as a data collector, if you have at least some idea, or some, if you have contributed any idea, which is any input, you can be added as a collaborator. And then probably you can also do it in a group, instead of, don't try to do a research alone. And it's not credible if you do it alone, because what we call a solo, in some other countries, a solo author is not accepted. But nowadays, for professorship, you need to follow at least one. But there are also, at least you have to be first author. In some journals, the first author is the last author. It depends from the journal. But in Ethiopian journals or African journals, yeah, first author is the one who is in front. But if you are in middle, usually you are not the major contributor. Also, some authors are the corresponding authors, because these are the one who responds to all questions, opinions, or ethical when asked from the reviewer or any ethical bodies. Correspondence has to be the one really who has done, who knows in and out about the research. So you can first just go to the different departments. For example, neurosurgery, you can come and you just tell us whether you want to do studies, do you do research, and we will give you a research, and then you will tell you how to collect the data, questionnaire, how to fill, and you will just come up with what is demi table, what is how to put. When you put a questionnaire, it's not a simple thing to put a questionnaire. It has to fit to your statistical software, and you put it, because just one to say, if you say questions 1, 2 up to 10, then there is no. Usually it has to be split. Every question has to be yes or no, 1 and 2, usually. But there are also others who should be put in rows, and so it is put in rows and columns when it is interpreted in your paper. But in software, you just say yes or no, 1 or 2 or 0 or none, something, male, female, something like that. Very 1 or 3 bullets.
Yeah, okay. I had a question personally. So, on scientific write-up, personally, what was the most challenging part of scientific writing when you started out in research, and how did you overcome it? And my second question would be, as you have said earlier, in our impact factor in our country, for example, as you said, the Ethiopian Medical Journal has 0.5, which is very low. And what ways do you think could we overcome this challenge of a very low impact factor as a country in general?
Yeah. The impact factor, to improve your impact factor, you have to improve your standard of reviewing the paper, quality of paper, editors, quality of the editors, proofreading, checking, and also renowned persons has to be included. And also you have to have an experience sharing with other countries, and probably also awareness creation, bring some advocacy or also education to the additional education to those who are reviewing, the reviewers. And there is lots of interest in reviewing, because it is not a rewarding one in Ethiopia. Because if you are a reviewer, for example, I am a reviewer for the East African in Central Africa, East Central African Journal of Surgery. I am the board and the editor also. But I am reviewer also for World Neurosurgery. That is the impact factor is above 1, 2, 2.7, up to 4. So this is also one of big. Usually, most are around 1. This 41, 69. This is unheard, the top ones, like Lancet and so on. So, improve your impact factor. You have to improve the quality first, and to improve the quality, also you have to try to also make your journal available online to all other countries so that they can publish in this country. And then they have to also you have to have a revolving fund. They have to pay to improve your quality. But in order to improve your quality, you have to also make yourself, you have to sell yourself first. So you have to advertise, you have to be very active on the website, on the internet, and so on. And then you have to show this is a good quality paper. But this one, financial is one, definitely. And the other is the quality of paper. When I started to write a paper, I can tell you it is a very primitive descriptive paper. So I started when I was a resident. It's unheard that a resident write paper. Only 2 of us we wrote. There was another guy with me. Otherwise, resident, it was not mandatory. But now, if you want to join to be a neurosurgeon, you have to write a paper, and a dissertation has to be. You have to present your paper, and have to be weighed. And then this was started since the inception, or since the first batch of neurosurgery, surgeon, specialists, subspecialists, but this has now grown to the whole department of neurosurgery. Previously, it was only for fellows or PhD. So this has improved the outcome, the quality of the research that is done in neurosurgery compared to 10 years back is definitely, it's a very big jump, it's a very big improvement. So, I mean, impact factor is also a reflection of the income of that country, because you cannot really have a very big impact factor in a very poor country as well, because everybody wants to have a publication in that one, but in the high impact factor, high indexed one. But this one, you have to pay. We cannot pay, so we send it to some other place. But when you collaborate also with foreigners, they pay these dollars, because we can't get any dollar. It's very difficult for us. So you have to have some, either a Visa card or someone to pay for you. So that increases. So you have to try to anyway find, just have to knock every door. That's what I say. That's only what I want to say.
The second question was, what was the most challenging aspect of scientific writing when you started off?
Yes, the most important challenging is there was very little researchers, or usually the doctors or surgeons, they don't have time to do research. They are always spending their time on doing surgery, round service, clinical, and so on, teaching, and there is no time. One most difficult one. So the other is there is no budget. Nowadays, they give them 25,000 or something like that. So they cannot do a very high quality research because you have to recruit a data collector for the one who analyze, for the software. A lot of, you have to show it in the budget breakdown in proposal, how much you are going to spend for this research. And you cannot do high quality research because you don't have the access. Also, you don't have also the how to conduct a clinical trial. It has to be in the national under the National Research Ethics Committee or in the national level. Otherwise, alone, you cannot do it as a clinical research, a randomized clinical trial. It's very difficult. So money, time, and lack of experience and lack of pioneers or very renowned researchers we don't have. But just what we publish is our work or our finding. Just it's only local, mainly local consumption. But nowadays have grown up, and we went to devise even formulas, even also predicting formulas, also calculating risks, and also trying to also see different type of surgery, comparing different types of surgeries versus the standard one. So this is also a collaborative one. So there is a real limitation. It's also a challenge for the new generation. So you have to find out your own way, and you have to find out just to have a collaborative research. That would be a very good start. Otherwise, if you start always with if you start like us with the only descriptive one and small, just locally important, and just are dumped somewhere else, no one uses them, you cannot really have a good research that changes some or answers some questions or change some management of some disease or something like that.
Thank you, Madam Professor. It means a lot to be enlightened by your wisdom, and I think everyone would agree that this was a very great session. And I think
thank you very much.
It was very great. Thank you, Madam.
For all of you for participating and listening to the presentation. Probably I would really come to you again with another topic.
We would be very happy to have you. Thank you, Madam.